Fools. Welcome back to another Formula Fools podcast. I'm David, your guide through the twists and turns, and with me is Skin, the man who is always one question away from asking another 5 questions.
Nice.
Because you're new to F1.
Yep. Gotcha. Yeah. Lots of questions.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's the thing that Chad helped me with yesterday.
Great.
He added the questions bit and then I was like, oh, 5 questions is like, that's a good little. So then me and Chad collabed on it.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well done.
Sit back, buckle up. It's time for Formula Fools. I've missed a line there. But anyway, I probably should explain who Chad is. Chad is just Chat GPT. Godey from the We Got the Chocolates podcast calls him Chad. So now we all call him Chad. Anyway, Skin, yesterday, and by yesterday, I mean, I wrote this yesterday. So Sunday, 2 days ago, we sat and watched the Formula One together, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And you asked me a question about Lightning McQueen, Cars, obviously your favorite film. I'm going to take it.
It's fine. It's up there. Yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So then, weirdly enough, this pops onto my timeline. I remember seeing it a few years back, but it just gave me a little chuckle seeing it's your favorite film. So I was watching an F1 race and noticed a pit crew. One of the pit crew members had the most wholesome tattoo I've ever seen. And it's a Ferrari mechanic. I'm assuming the jackman from his position in the pits. And he has a red version of Guido from Cars on the back of his arm with the little like pit stop gun in his hand.
Okay.
So I just thought of you, Skin, your favourite film. Maybe this is your next tattoo.
Okay. No, certainly not. That is nice though. Wait. Okay, so that's from a few years ago, is it?
Well, just based on Mission Winnow don't sponsor Ferrari anymore.
Oh, sure.
So I'm going to assume this was a few years back. But I also remember I've seen this before. Just don't know when.
Yeah, those little guys in Cars work fantastic.
Yeah. They're on the tools, like us.
They were rapid pit stops. They probably have the world record.
Yeah, they'd beat McLaren, hands down. Okay, so you've got some questions this week. We're kind of like moving through explaining how Formula One works for like basics and like people that are new to the sport. So you want to talk about F1 teams this week and like how they developed and where they came from kind of thing. Mainly the ones that are on the grid at the moment. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah, I just wanted to get a bit of an overview of who the teams are and where they come from. I sort of mentioned, I think I mentioned last week how they sort of seem to chop and change a little bit and come in and out. And I was a bit nervous about if I wanted to get behind, say, Aston Martin, who've only been around for a few years and sort of what that's all about. So I was just hoping you could give me a rundown on some of the teams. Are there anyone else? I assume like the likes of like Ferrari have sort of been involved forever and have never changed. Is that safe to say? Is there anyone else like that in that sort of boat?
Yeah. So Ferrari are the longest serving team in Formula One history. So they've been in since the very beginning. They've never missed a year of Formula One, which is insane. Because when you look at the rest of the teams, you'll be like, holy shit, they've changed names more times than you change your underpants.
Yeah, okay.
The only other teams that are similar are Williams, McLaren, and Haas. Obviously, Haas a little less impressive because they only joined in like 2016 or 17 or something. So, but they've just never
similar in terms of they haven't changed their name.
They came in as a brand new constructor with a whole new team and have never changed their name, never been bought out. Like they've changed their name. It was originally Haas, and then we've had like headline sponsors have come in. So this year it's like MoneyGram Haas F1 team, but that's just a headline sponsor putting their name on it.
Sure.
Williams and McLaren, the exact same vein. They've not been in since the very beginning, but I think McLaren might be just older than Williams. I can't really remember, but yeah, three are the.
I just googled McLaren joined in 66.
There you go. So 66. I don't know when Williams joined. It would have been maybe 70s, just based on nothing really, but just I'm assuming the 70s. Yeah, one of the little wild guesses that Disco has. Okay. They're our longest three.
They're stable.
Yeah.
And then everyone else is just a shambles or what?
Everyone else is just, when we do some of our deep dives into the history of Formula One, when we look at people like Adrian Newey or we look at people like Bernie Ecclestone, and you look at teams that they used to run, you'll be like, who the fuck is that? Like, where did that team come from? Because there are so many teams from back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s as well a little bit, and some probably in the 90s where they were just kind of like smaller entries that either never got bought out or just went bust or whatever, because we would have a lot more teams in F1 than what we've got now. Right. But they could just be like real small teams. Like they like nowhere near as big. Like they didn't have financial backing from an actual like car manufacturer or anything like that. It was just people going and making a team kind of thing.
Okay, right.
Like Eddie Jordan. He does punditry now. You might see him around sometimes on some reels. He had a team called Jordan Racing, which I think is part No, I can't see it on this list. So I'm going to assume they just disappeared.
Okay.
But I'm sure they got bought out by someone and then
so there were
fizzled out.
Okay, so there were like tiny teams without tons of money that just essentially just blokes just building cars.
Yeah, I mean, they would have had a fair amount of money to enter F1 and build an F1 car. Yeah, but not as much as like the likes of the teams we've got on the grid now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, especially the top ones like Red Bulls, Ferraris, Mercedes, like them kind of ones. Like they definitely wouldn't have been able to compete consistently at that level.
Okay.
But then sometimes you'll see some like weird results where they do perform well, just because of they've hired a guru team of people to make the car, and they've got a one-off like good race result or something like that because they just got lucky one day or something like that.
Okay.
But they would never be able to sustain it like without the finance behind them.
Okay, gotcha. So then, can you give us a rundown of the other teams in the current F1 grid?
Yep.
I assume have been chopping and changing their names.
Yeah.
And ownership and things like that over the years. Who are some sort of interesting examples there?
Red Bull are probably one of the least interesting. Red Bull and AlphaTauri, V-Carb, Red Bull B team, that team, they're probably the least interesting. So Red Bull came from Stewart Racing from like the 90s. Jaguar bought Stewart Racing out. Jaguar, obviously the car manufacturer.
Yep.
You know Jaguars?
I know Jaguars.
Yeah, okay. You just don't see many around nowadays.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So bought them out and had an F1 team for a while?
Had an F1 team for a while,
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think Mark Webber raced for them for a while.
Lovely.
But yeah, Jaguar, they had an F1 team and then Red Bull bought Jaguar because they were just struggling. So then Red Bull kind of came in, took over. I think you asked me a question yesterday as well of like, has an F1 team, have Red Bulls, did they sponsor and then, or did they just come straight in? I think they sponsored the Jaguar and then bought them out. So I think it was like a Red Bull Jaguar and then Red Bull took over.
Okay.
And then AlphaTauri, V-Carb, whatever you want to call them, Red Bull's B team.
Yep.
They were Minardi F1 team and then Toro Rosso took them over and then they rebranded to AlphaTauri, which was kind of just a sponsorship thing. That ran out last year. And now they are Visa, Cash App, Red Bull, or Visa Cash App RB. I don't fucking know. Everyone's still calling them Toro Rosso or AlphaTauri.
Okay.
Or just the Red Bull B team.
Okay.
That's who Daniel Ricciardo drives for.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry. What was the team they started as?
That was Minardi F1 team.
Okay. So Red Bull just bought this Minardi team to use as their junior team? Is that?
I'm assuming so, yeah, but I don't really know if surely Red Bull owned Toro Rosso straight away. I don't really know.
Okay.
They may have come in as kind of I don't know.
Nice.
To be honest. They've never been up there. So like and they've never been a team that I've like cared about so much. So okay. I don't really know much about their history.
They've never been up there in terms of like where they finished.
They'll midfield at absolute best.
Okay.
Like, yeah, maybe get a top 6 every so often.
All right.
I mean, they've had a few race wins, but again, circumstantial.
Fair enough.
So then we've got some other teams on the grid. Alpine have got probably Alpine and Aston Martin have probably got the craziest journeys to where they are now. So Alpine started with, they were Tolman and then they were Benetton. Benetton actually won Schumacher's first, maybe his first 2 world championships. Can't remember. Definitely his first was with the Benetton. Then Renault took them over. Renault then became, that looks like a Lotus logo, but that image is really small for some reason. Maybe Lotus. And then back to Renault. No, it definitely was Lotus. And then back to Renault, and then Alpine kind of took over from Renault. Alpine and Renault are basically the same team.
Alpine and Renault are basically the same team.
Yeah, I think they're owned by the same people or something. So like, it's when Alpine took over from Renault, it wasn't like a massive deal because all of the head people from Renault just kind of put Alpine t-shirts on the next day, and then they worked for Alpine.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because they're both French.
Okay. And was that fairly recent? Because I'm one series into Drive to Survive, so I've just been watching the whole story of Renault.
Yeah, and of course.
Yeah, I mean they're heavily involved, and now not so much. So.
Yeah, and that's you kind of see it in that show that the Alpine takeover with Renault is not a massively significant thing. It's the exact same team. Like nothing really changed.
Okay.
It's nothing crazy. It wasn't the biggest takeover. Just like the takeover from Lotus to Renault wasn't the biggest takeover. Lotus were ran by Renault engines. So Renault had a very big kind of amount of people working for that team. So when they took over, it was a big deal because Renault were returning back to the sport. And they had success with Fernando in the early 2000s. So it was a fairly big deal, but As you can see in season 1, they don't trouble the top that much.
Yeah, no, very true.
And then, Aston Martin, one of the teams that you're considering skin, they've also had a pretty crazy history. So they started off with Jordan. Jordan had a fair bit of success. Damon Hill actually raced for Jordan. Obviously, you know Damon Hill.
Yeah, one of my favourites.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, 1996 world champion, British.
Yep.
Won for Williams.
I was right into F1 in 96.
Yeah.
So that was...
Yeah. When were you born?
97.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay, so then Midland F1 Racing then bought Jordan out after that. And then Spiker F1 bought them out. If I'm going to be honest with you, it took us about 10 minutes to figure this out, but I don't really know who these two teams are. This was probably Spiker or Midland. Midland kind of rings a bell, but Spiker, I have no fucking clue. But the car rings a bell because the car is fucking guru. It's like all orange and shit and it looks gorgeous. So that definitely does ring a bell. So anyway, after Spiker, Force India took over.
Yep.
This was when my interest in F1 really peaked, is when Force India entered the sport. I was getting to the point where I was really starting to understand it at like a young age. So,
how old would you have been then?
I don't know exactly when they took over, but I was like 10 or something like that.
Your interest peaked because Force India took over?
Force India became my team for a little bit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I just loved the look of the car. I loved the like orange, white and green. It just looks so cool.
Okay.
So like I would just get like Force India posters and flags. And they had like these cool flags and I would just have them around my room and stuff. I froth it so much.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
And also Nico Hulkenberg was like fairly young back then. Still he races for Haas now.
Yeah.
And he started racing for them and I frothed Hulkenberg at the time. So yeah, I was just hoping he'd get a race win and he still never even got a podium. Anyway.
He still never got a podium?
Still never got a podium.
Crikey.
Yeah. He's been in F1 for so long as well.
Okay.
So then obviously I think Drive to Survive season 1 talks about the difficulties that Force India face, especially with their owner at the time, Vijay Mallya.
Yeah.
So he had to sell the team.
Yeah.
Lawrence Stroll stepped in, rebranded it to Racing Point, which was then the pink car, the BWS pink that's on the Alpine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they kind of went with Lawrence Stroll and sponsored Racing Point.
Okay.
And then obviously Lawrence then got Aston Martin involved and then they rebranded and Aston Martin bought out Racing Point and is now Aston Martin F1. So your question about should you be an Aston Martin supporter because they're going to go anywhere? If your other teams that you're looking at are Ferrari and McLaren, well, you see how the Ferrari and McLaren lines have never changed.
Yes.
And the Aston Martin one has.
Yes. Okay.
I wouldn't say that Aston Martin are going to go anywhere. I think Lawrence is setting it up in a way where they'll stay in the sport for a long time.
Okay.
But you just never know.
Yeah.
You just never know.
Okay. All right.
So other teams on the list, we'll just whip through these real quick. We've got Alfa Romeo, which is now Kick F1, Steak Kick F1 Sauber.
Sure.
I don't fucking know. And in 2026, that will then obviously become Audi because why not have just 2 seasons of a new rebrand? So they were originally Sauber, then they were BMW Sauber, then they were back to Sauber, then they were Alfa Romeo Sauber. Now they're Kick F1 Sauber, and then they will be Audi. So technically Sauber has always been the same. They would just bring in headline sponsors like BMW or Alfa Romeo or Kick. But Sauber as a team, that company still kind of run the team. And then Audi will be taking over fully in 26. That's new news that just dropped the other day.
Right. Okay. And do you mean like taking over the team? Like they'll own the team and everything will change, or it'll be like they're a headline sponsor of Sauber?
No, full 100% takeover.
Right.
We knew they were coming into the sport, but originally the contract was going to be 25% share of the business and ownership of it. But then the other day they announced that now they're scrapping that 100% buyout. So could see some very big shakeups at that team.
Okay.
Drivers might the big thing at the moment is with Carlos Sainz is like, where's he going to go now? Lewis has taken his seat. A lot of people are saying he should probably go to that team for next year, even though they'll probably suck next year like they are this year. But in 2026, Audi are going to come in. So then you've got a brand new, like an actual engine manufacturer under you instead of being a customer's engine. Yeah. And you've got a team that want to succeed in Formula One and are new to it. So it could be a good bet for Carlos Sainz.
Okay.
And then the other ones, we've got Mercedes. So they were originally Tyrrell, then they were BAR, which was British American Racing Honda. Then they were Honda for a very short period of time, I'm pretty sure. And then they were Braun, Brawn were only in there for one season. You've still not watched the Brawn documentary, have you?
Nope.
Skin. And then after Brawn's success, Mercedes came in and bought them out.
Okay.
A little bit of history on Brawn because it's funny as fuck. You will watch the documentary though. Ross Brawn bought the team from Honda for £1.
How?
Yeah. I watched the documentary, Skin. It's a very interesting story.
Okay.
But the team was in shit. Someone needed to buy them out. Well, they kind of thought they had a decent car, so someone to go racing and so that everyone didn't just get sacked. Yeah. So they needed to purchase it for at least £1. Okay. So he bought it for £1.
Right. That sounds like a decent deal.
Yeah. The guy from Honda still has that £1 that Ross Brawn gave to him as well. He keeps it. It's such an insane story, honestly.
Okay.
And that rounds up all of our grid. So that's everyone.
All right. So are there any, so that's the current grid.
Yeah.
Are there any teams that have existed over the years, like really noticeable, exciting teams that just don't exist anymore at all? Like you sort of mentioned, like BMW were involved at one point, became Sauber, et cetera.
Well, no, Sauber got BMW.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Apologies. But yeah, are there any other teams like that? Like I don't know, like car companies like BMW, Honda, like people that you would expect that seem notable, like it makes sense for them to have F1 teams, and they just...
Yeah. Well, Honda technically are still in the sport now.
Okay.
So Honda power Red Bull, kind of. It's really weird. So Honda were with McLaren a few years back, sucked arse, like were so bad at McLaren. Fernando Alonso had a very famous radio message where he called the engine a GP2 engine. As in, like, it used to be called GP2. It's now called Formula 2. Jesus Christ. F1 is so confusing. So he called it a Formula 2 engine and was just insulting it. And then McLaren kind of dropped him and was like, nah, we're going to go back to the Mercedes engine. And then Honda and Red Bull got together, and Red Bull were like in need of a new engine. Renault had fucked him over. You'll see that all of this in Drive to Survive Season 2, I think.
Okay.
It happens.
Yeah, I think in Season 1, I've just seen Red Bull are leaving Renault.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So they pick up Honda.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in 21, they just designed a fairly guru engine. Honda did fit well with the car, and they won the championship. And then midway through the season, announced that they were leaving F1, which makes no sense. Then to confuse matters even more, Red Bull then said they were going to take over the design of the engine and call it Red Bull Powertrains, which is weird. And then Honda said, no, we're going to stay in the sport. So they're kind of still in the sport, but they're not really in the sport.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean they're kind of still in the sport? Do they design engines for any
It's
team?
still the Red Bull in the Red Bull.
Right.
They still have a Honda engine, but I don't know what it's called, but it's definitely not as big and loud as what they were in 2021 about it being the Honda engine.
Okay.
So it's very confusing, but yeah, they're technically still in the sport. Okay. BMW, like that BMW Sauber was probably the most involvement they have ever had in Formula One. Mm-hmm. We will do one of their crashes that they had in that car for Robert Kubica. It was an insane crash. You'll be doing that on That's a lot of force.
Okay.
And we've had like Ford have been in it and are talking about coming back. Have you heard the Mario Andretti team that are trying to join? No. They just kind of got rejected to join for 26, I think. They want to bring General Motors, which is the company that owned Ford. They want to bring General Motors back into the mix, and then they'll provide an engine for them. But F1 said, no, you're not allowed to do it. Like, fix all these issues, and then you can join in 28. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, we've had a lot of companies like that. Like Toyota used to have a very big team in Formula One. Yeah.
Toyota had an F1 team.
Yeah, fairly big. Again,
really?
Some fairly decent crashes as well there.
Really?
Yeah.
And now they're just not involved at all?
Not involved at all, no. Okay. We had a bit of a meltdown around the Brawn time for Mercedes in like the late, what do you call it, noughties?
Sure. Yeah,
from like in like that kind of period, 2008, 9, 10, we had a real rough patch where the economic crisis of the world was so bad that teams just couldn't. That's why Honda decided to leave. They were just losing money entering F1 and too much to just fathom. So they were just like, we're out. And we lost Toyota, we lost Honda, which became Mercedes. So we kind of didn't lose anything.
Sure.
But yeah, we lost a lot of teams around that time. Okay. And a lot of interest around that time as well.
Were Toyota any good?
No.
Okay.
They were all right. Like they'd get some like decent results, but they were never challenging.
Okay.
They were never like top step all the time.
All right. Gotcha. And then you've kind of spoken a little bit about like how like the sort of interrelation between teams, like customer engines and things like that. Can you help me understand that at all? Why would that exist? Like, so in that season 1 of Drive to Survive that I've been watching. So Renault have been supplying the engine to Red Bull.
Yeah.
Is that not a massive conflict of interest given Renault has a team?
Yep.
Like, why does that happen?
Building an engine is probably the most expensive bit of the car to build.
Okay.
And when you build an engine, you then need to hire potentially 1,000 new people to just build your engine and design it and make sure it works and test it and everything like that. So like the actual manpower and money that it costs to manufacture an engine is so big that teams like McLaren or Williams or Red Bull, who are not car manufacturers, who do not make their own engines in the real world.
McLaren don't make their own engines. I don't
know what engines go in the back of the McLaren sports cars, but I would imagine it's not. And even if it is a McLaren designed engine, it would not go in it's not the kind of engine that would go in a Formula 1 car. It's not. It's either not big enough or it's too big.
Sure.
So yeah, it's very different. But when McLaren first started, they definitely didn't do that. So McLaren have always been usually Mercedes engines. They had that brief stint with Honda and back to Mercedes. But yeah, it's very weird.
So Mercedes currently make the engine for McLaren?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mercedes do McLaren, Williams, and the Aston Martin. They're all Mercedes powered.
Okay. And are they all the same engine then? Like, would Mercedes have the same engine as all those teams?
Yeah, technically. But then the software to power the engine and to run the engine and to get the best modes of the engine and things like that is that's where the difference can be made. But yeah, that's why you'll sometimes see that like Williams have a fucking brilliant straight line speed, and we're like we could be one of the fastest cars at a track, is because we've got the same engine as them. It's just our chassis sucks or our aero sucks or whatever. Like we haven't got the setup right or whatever. So it's really difficult to say. Like it's really difficult to explain it, but the engine doesn't make everything, but it is such a big factor that if you've got a shit engine like the Renault that Red Bull had in season 1 of Drive to Survive, then it doesn't matter how good your car is because you've got a shit engine. Like in that season, it just blew up all the time. So yeah, it sucked for them.
Okay. And are there any other things like that teams outsource to each other, or is it really just engines?
Yeah, they're quite limited, but certainly gearboxes, because they just go hand in hand with the engines. And then some other of the power unit elements like the KERS systems and things like that they'll be kind of outsourced to Mercedes, because they all anything that is attached to that engine or kind of directly is influenced by the engine, they get kind of support from their engine supplier to help them out with it.
Okay.
So I know the Williams, for example, has a lot of parts from the Mercedes, and we always have. Right. So like we definitely got their gearbox in the back of our car.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess like how do you resolve the conflict of interest? I guess you just trust that Mercedes aren't going to give you a shit gearbox to make you lose, because then you'll stop paying them for their gearbox.
I think it's FIA regulated, so I think that whatever is made out of the factory, it is they're not allowed to go and give them a shit engine.
Okay.
It has to be the exact same on paper.
Okay.
Like they're not allowed to just fuck with it, kind of thing. And that's why we saw last year Aston Martin did really well against Mercedes, and why we're seeing this year McLaren are doing really well against Mercedes, because they've designed a great car and they've got a great engine, and Mercedes just have probably designed a slightly lesser car.
Okay.
So yeah. But then other teams that are linked, Ferrari and Haas have the same engines, and Ferrari and Sauber, Kick F1, Sauber, whatever it is, they've got the same engines.
They're Ferrari engines? Ferrari
engines, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Alpine are the only people with the Alpine Renault engine. Red Bull and AlphaTauri have the Honda/Red Bull powertrains, whatever you want to call it, engine.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of the field is Mercedes powered, which is why Audi coming into the sport is quite significant, because they're going to make their own engine. Yeah. So then teams like Williams could then go, hey, we want this Audi engine instead of this Mercedes one, and then become a customer to Audi. I think we've signed a long contract with Mercedes so that we won't do that. Okay. And I'm pretty sure McLaren just did as well. So I doubt we'll see that change up anytime soon, but maybe in 28 or something like that.
All righty.
And now we're moving on to the Hot Lap recap with Ryan Smith, our man in the field. Ryan Smith is back with another Hot Lap recap for you this week. And he's had a tough job because obviously we all know Max, he qualified on pole. That was a stumble of words. He qualified on pole and then he won the race. So boring race again.
Yeah.
We've not mentioned that yet.
Yeah, probably because it was boring, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Anyway, so Ryan is going to give us a quick recap of what happened during the race weekend in the time it would take. We may as well just put this in the script. In the time it would take Max Verstappen to get his pole lap at every single track this season. So here's Ryan.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Hot Lap Recap, where I, your average Ryan, serve up the latest F1 race weekend drama with just a little side of snark in the time it takes to do a hot quali lap of the Saudi Arabia circuit. And today, I'm starting with you, Mr. Skin. That's right. What's all this about Max Verstappen, eh? Well, don't you worry, because I've Verstappened myself into the hot seat today, and I recommend that you both do too. So come on, lights out. Let's go. Max Verstappen, the speed demon himself. Well, he had a race that was almost as smooth as it is to pronounce his last name. His only hiccup before taking victory, though, well, that was taking 3 laps to pass Lando Norris, who was probably just still dizzy from Stroll's latest display of talent. Speaking of Lance, Max was so far ahead at this point that he wouldn't have seen Stroll's latest audition for Daddy, I Crashed the Car again. Now, Perez and Leclerc made up the podium places after successfully navigating that pit stop chaos that ensued following Lance's stroll into the barriers. Last minute stand-in, Oliver Behrman stepped in for Carlos Sainz, who was out with just a mild case of appendicitis, and he made his F1 debut. And yeah, you know, he made it count. While his dad was in the pits with dollar signs in his eyes and his finger hovering precariously over the book a test drive button on the latest Ferrari Portofino, he nervously watched his talented prodigy bring it back in 7th. And at just 18 years old, Behrman is now the youngest ever F1 driver. It kind of makes it look like the rest of us wasted our teenage years, didn't they, David? Oscar Piastri, the Aussie battler, had a dogged time behind Hamilton, who epitomised, if at first you don't succeed, just cut the corner and try again. And he finally made the pass stick, securing a decent 4th place. And in the world of F1 politics, Bin Sulayem's been trying to shake off those rumours about being in Aston Martin's back pocket. He's been doing it more times than our very own Disco Dave has tried to make Guru sound legit with his British accent. Dave, it doesn't. Stop the clock! And breathe. So there you have it, folks. Verstappen's perfect podium, Behrman's divine debut, Stroll's reliability to crash, and Piastri's persistence. Just another day in the high-speed soap opera that is Formula One. Oh, and before I forget, hats off to Max Verstappen for snagging pole with a blistering lap of 1 minute 27.472. That's a new track record at the Jeddah Corniche Stadium. There you go. That's a wrap then, folks, on today's Hot Lap Recap. Oh, yeah. Join me, Ryan, next time for more turbocharged tales from the track. Until then, keep your wheels hot. And Dave, keep your pit garage guru.
Nice. Copped a little roast in there.
Yeah, haven't you?
Yeah. Also, I think he said Behrman was the youngest driver. He's 3rd youngest driver. Max and Lance Stroll were younger than him at 17 and 18.
Really?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Come on, Ryan, do better. Yeah. So, what do you reckon?
That was good.
You look confused about the FIA Bin Salam, whatever his name is, the FIA guy with Aston Martin.
Yeah, I didn't follow that at all. No.
Yeah. So the news from this week is that one of the presidents of the FIA he's a whistleblower has come forward and has said that he fixed a race last year in Saudi Arabia by overturning a penalty that should have gone towards Fernando, meaning that Fernando finished on the podium when he should have had a 10-second penalty.
Right, okay.
And basically fix the result.
Well, that would be bad.
It is bad.
Yeah,
yeah, it's very bad. So he's under investigation.
Do you remember it? Did the penalty seem legitimate?
Oh, I've seen the footage of it. It's 100% legitimate. He had a 5-second penalty, came into the pits, and as we spoke about at the weekend, if you've got a penalty in your pit, you've got to stay stationary. They're not allowed to touch the car, and then they do the pit stop. The rear jack man went in and put the jack on the car, so that he could then lift it immediately after that 5 seconds. So. Right. That's a breach of rules. So he should have then had a further either 5 or 10-second penalty. I'm pretty sure it's 10 after that. And he never received it. At the time, I don't think any of us saw it because you don't look at the pit stops live like that carefully.
Yeah. Okay.
Or maybe they did, I don't know. But I can't remember talking about it last year. And then, it's kind of all come out that happened. And now the footage is everywhere. And it's like, oh yeah, he definitely should have got a penalty and not finished on the podium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drama. Nice.
And also in some other news as well, may as well just throw this out there because I saw it this morning. Felipe Massa has officially lodged a lawsuit against the FIA and Bernie Ecclestone. You don't know who Felipe Massa is. So let me just give you a quick recap on that. So the report out of Sky Sports this morning was Felipe Massa files lawsuit against FIA, Formula One and Bernie Ecclestone. So in 2008, I think I spoke about on episode 1, Lewis and Felipe were going for the title. Last race of the season, Felipe wins the race, is world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Lewis was in like P6 or 7 or something, needed the position above him to be able to win the world championship by 1 point.
Yeah.
On the second to last corner, a car ahead of Lewis starts going slow, his tyres are off. Lewis passes him, gets the 5th or 6th position, wins the championship. Yeah. So Massa was like champion for 30 seconds. It's kind of like what everyone describes him as, which sucks. I was a Massa fan. I was crying. It was horrific.
Okay.
It turns out there was a race that season where a Renault crashed into the wall and Felipe ended up not winning the race and Lewis ended up finishing ahead of him.
Okay.
That was a fix. Renault fixed the race and made their second driver crash so Fernando would win the race. So their main driver would win the race. So they fixed the race and it was a deliberate crash to bring out the safety car at a perfect time so Fernando could pit under the safety car, get track position, get a good refueling and then go on to win the race. The FIA knew about it and have come out last year and said, we knew that it happened. We didn't do anything at the time. We didn't penalise them. So they knew they cheated and they didn't penalise them. So Massa is now suing them.
Crikey. Okay.
Drama.
Yeah, that's a lot of drama.
Yeah. There's a lot of off-track drama this year.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to F1.
Mate, I'm struggling to keep up with what's going on the track.
Trust me.
You've just bombarded me with a lot of info.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well.
But again, I think that could have its own full fucking episode on its own.
Yeah,
so
it sounds like it.
Back to this race weekend.
Sure.
Any questions, anything you wanted to chat about from the race?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I noticed, I just feel like I don't have a good enough understanding of teams' like strategies with the tyres, like when to change tyres, when to pit, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously there was the safety car for a while, which brought everyone back together.
Yep.
When Stroll
lap
crashed,
7, yeah.
lap 7, and then so Hamilton and Norris decided not to pit and change their tyres.
Yeah.
And that seemed to end up being a pretty poor decision.
Yeah, I reckon so. When you look at the grid, the reason they didn't do it, just to cover that one, is George was ahead of Lewis and George and Lewis were really close. So they would have had to double stack them in the pits, which means to pit one after the other straight away,
right.
Which is a massive stress on the team. And it's like usually doesn't work. Like usually the second person gets a real shit pit stop. So for that reason, you don't normally do it because you kind of like, it's not worth the risk of potentially losing an extra 10 seconds or whatever.
Okay.
Red Bull decided to do it. Most of other teams decided to do it. Red Bull was probably the most shocking one because they're like, do you remember Max going in and Checo going in right behind him? It was like super close. Yeah. Like literally Max left the pit box as Checo was entering the pit box.
Yeah.
So like they pulled it off and it was a risk worth taking in the end. I think the reason Mercedes and McLaren didn't choose to do that is because they assumed we would have a second safety car. I think I even said at the time, we're probably going to have a second safety car.
Yeah, you did say that. Why did you say that? Is that just a shit track that has a lot of crashes?
It's a street circuit. And if Stroll crashed like that on his own, the chances of another car crashing out or crashing into each other, fairly high. Okay. And especially when you saw like all that battle with Kevin Magnussen holding all them guys up, like how they didn't crash at any point, I don't know. So yeah, I think that would probably have been in their thought process that we would have had either a late on crash or a mid race crash, and we just didn't. So it turned out to be a bad strategy because of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We should also watch the pre-show of F1 because Ted Kravitz, one of the pundits, will go through strategy talk and tire talk and stuff. So it'd be good for you to learn about that.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. If it went at 2 a.m, maybe I would watch it.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, after the Melbourne Grand Prix, which we're going to, by the way, everyone, I'm pretty sure it's Japan, which is usually a like midday race for us because like similar time zone. So
beautiful. Yeah. Right. I look forward to it. But yeah, all Lance Stroll, that he like literally, he literally just drove straight into the wall.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
I can't describe.
Does that happen
what
often?
happens.
Like that's just such a blunder, isn't it? Like it's just
usually not in the race. Like you might see it in a free practice, maybe in a qualifying when you're like really pushing to the limit. But like lap 7 of a race, like Nah, come on.
It was like, what?
Yeah.
We're waiting on the replay. What could have possibly happened here? Oh, he just drove straight into the wall.
I think I was like screaming at the telly, like, did his tire pop? Did his suspension break?
Yeah.
Oh no, he hit a wall.
Yeah, right.
He's a pig.
Just probably don't do that, I guess.
Yeah, that was
so bizarre.
It was the most questionable driving I've ever seen. He was nowhere, like, it wasn't like he was tight with someone, like he was just on his own and just hit the fucking wall. I don't even know. I can't explain what a lot of that guy does.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It was funny. I enjoyed it.
Also, just a quick shout out, Ollie Behrman. I know Ryan mentioned it in his recap, but like 18 years old, not having a massive amount of time to prep for it. Like he did great. I also just want to throw out there that the praise he's getting is fucking ridiculous. Like, I don't agree with 90% of the praise that he's getting. Okay, yeah, he probably should have got driver of the day. Fair play to the guy. But he's in the second fastest car and he finished fucking 7th.
Yeah, okay. Can you explain that driver of the day thing to me? Because I was he's 18. It's obviously all very good. Well done. But I was very confused by that. Like, I was sitting there watching the race. I hardly ever saw him because he was sort of in the middle, back half of the grid. You were watching this big battle between like Piastri and Hamilton. I thought one of them might be driver of the day for sort of doing whatever they did there. And then it was like driver of the day votes, 99%.
Yeah, it was
What's
cool.
that all about?
So the driver of the day vote is public. So if you're watching the race live, you go onto f1.com/vote and then you can vote for who you want the driver to be.
Okay.
And so Ollie Behrman, he's British. End of story.
Right.
Yeah, he's British and he's 18. So all the British fans would have just got around him. And then also he raced for Ferrari. So then all of the Italian fans and the Tifosi.
Yeah, okay.
Wait, you don't know what Tifosi are yet, do they? Oh, skin. The Tifosi are basically like the Italian, like diehards of Ferrari. So when we go to Imola this year, Imola. When we go to Monza this year, the racetrack in Italy, you just see like the most like wild fans. Like they fucking love Ferrari.
Right. Okay.
They like live and breathe Ferrari. Yeah. So yeah, the Tifosi would have also got behind it and just hammered the votes. So yeah.
Yeah, no, well, good on him.
Another driver that I want to mention as well is Oscar Piastri. P4 did insane. I think you said during the race, I think I could get behind Oscar and McLaren. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah. I've been tossing up between who I want to support. I've been trying to find a bandwagon to jump on now that if I'm going to get into the sport and follow it a little bit. I've been tossing up between McLaren and Aston Martin. I think I like
because they're beating Aston Martin and they're driving into all.
Yeah, they're winning. Well, they're beating them, I guess. Oscar's Australian. I like it.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. He did really good as well in that race. I mean, the fact he didn't get past Lewis was a bit of a shit one.
Yeah, that was annoying. And he kept passing him, but having to give the spot
back. Going off the track. Yeah, that was hard to explain to you during the race. Yeah, you're like, why does he keep doing that? Well, Skin, he's carrying a bit too much speed.
Yeah, true. No, I find it bizarre that like you go off the track, which is a 5-second penalty. But then not if you give the spot back. Like
well,
you can just ditch the 5-second penalty, but
because there is no like set in stone what a 5-second penalty is.
Right.
So like if you do that, but then you give it back, it's kind of like it's unfair racing going off the track and making an overtaking move. But then it's a gentleman's thing to then give that position back. So then it's kind of like waived, and also you've given up the time that you'd gained. Yeah. So like you're taking a time penalty anyway. Because like he would have been probably in that first overtake he did on Hamilton, he would have probably been 0.8 of a second ahead of Lewis had he just carried on. So at that point, he's probably gained 2 seconds, maybe 2.5.
Yeah.
So him going back, he then dropped a second backwards. So he's dropped that 2.5 seconds straight away. So he's taken a 2.5 second, 2 second penalty from easing off.
Yeah, okay.
And then he's also done the gentleman thing and just the nice thing for racing. So yeah.
Okay.
You kind of just don't get it. But he did great. P4 smashed it. I think he got to a point. I think he got to a point during the battle where he was just like, I don't need to overtake him because he still needs to pit, and we know that we can go to the end on these tires. Yeah, so I think he was at the point just like he just needed to stay on him if there was a safety car, so he would still get the position, and then that was it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Because I was so wigged out by that. Like I saw him sort of not able to overtake Lewis, and I was like, oh, he's going to finish 9th or something like that, and then. And like, I just assumed he would have to pit again, like that his tyres wouldn't last the rest of the race or something like that. And I thought that was Lewis's whole strategy. And then Lewis pitted and no one else pitted again. And I was like, oh, he just finishes 4th.
It's so weird because I went into the race, and again, we didn't watch the pre-show because it's fucking 3 a.m. So like I went into the race thinking, this is a high degradation circuit. Like the tyres are going to fall off. either they've brought harder compound tires this year or something. I don't know. But like the tires just didn't go off. Like they just lasted so fucking well. So I was shocked. I thought they were definitely going to 2-stop when they stopped on lap 7. But yeah, it was a guru drive from him. And P4, I mean, P4 is literally like, let's face it, you're probably not going to get P1 and 2 this year, unless maybe if you're in a Ferrari, because Red Bull have got that covered. So P3 is the kind of the best you can do. But also the Ferraris are probably going to be up there. So P3 and 4 are kind of taken from them. So a P4 for Oscar is basically a victory. It's huge.
I find that. Yeah, okay. I know. I see what you're saying. I find that whole attitude in F1 so bizarre. There's literally like betting markets for like drivers champion except for Max. It's like you just accept that you're not going to win.
Yeah,
it's so bizarre.
It is so weird. But to be fair, like when you watch season 6 of Drive to Survive, I don't even think they mention that Max wins the championship. But the last episode is all about second place. So the entire last episode is just who's going to get second place? Is it? Oh, it's second place in the Constructors' Championship. So it's like, is it Mercedes or is it Ferrari?
Right.
And like Red Bull are just not mentioned because it's like, yep, they've won.
That is so bizarre.
Okay, Skin, I've got a few audio grabs for you. I want to introduce you to a man called Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen is a Finnish F1 driver. No Finnish puns for me there, Skin?
No,
okay.
I'm all right. Yeah,
he did finish the race.
Very good.
Yeah, if Cody was here, he'd have some better stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. So we can just talk without puns every couple of sentences.
Oh, that sucks. Anyway, Kimi Räikkönen is a Finnish F1 driver. He raced for Ferrari. He raced for McLaren, I think. He raced for Lotus. He's raced for a few teams. He's guru. He's also known for having some of the greatest moments of F1. And I'm just going to touch upon a few. These are a few of his radio messages. So first up, we've got this beautiful one. Well, I'm going to play you what his engineer said to him, and then I'm going to play you his response. You can have a little guess at what his response is if you want.
Okay, Kimi, next car behind you is Alonso. I'll keep you updated on the pace.
Fairly nice radio message from his engineer.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Seems worth knowing.
Yeah. Do you want to hear his
car behind you?
Do you want to hear his response?
Please.
Just leave me alone, I know what to do.
He shouts, "Just leave me alone, I know what I'm doing."
Wait, play it again.
So this is what he gets.
Okay, Kimi, next car behind you is Alonso. I'll keep you updated on the pace.
Just leave me alone, I know what to do.
That is good. Nice.
He doesn't want to know. Yeah. He doesn't even care.
Well, I rate that because I was going to ask you about this shit at some point.
Yep.
It does sometimes seem a bit pointless, these conversations with the engineers back and forth. Like you hear some of them that come over the radio and it's like,
yeah,
there's a car in front of you. Try and overtake it. Like, yeah, mate, we're in a race. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
I need you to really push and overtake that one front. I know. That's
the aim of the game.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to do. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't even know, but the only thing I can say is when we go karting, you'll have no fucking clue where you are or what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll I think you'll understand it a bit more than then. But some of the radio messages, when they're encouraging them like that, it is like, yeah, I know. Like, it's so dumb. But that radio message just telling him the gap to the car behind is like,
that
stock
seems
standard.
worth knowing.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got another one from Kimi. So this is what he received.
How is the front wing?
So basic question, how's the front wing?
Yep.
I don't know, you have to tell me.
As simple as that. He's got no fucking clue.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
Nice.
You like that?
I like it.
I do have another one for you. This isn't a back and forth. This is just one long radio message from Kimi Räikkönen. I'll give you some context. They had something wrong on the car. So before the race, they were in the pits trying to fix something on the car. And you know how they'll usually they'll do a lap round to the grid, then they'll pull it on, then they kind of push you forward and put you in your grid spot.
Yeah.
Then you do the formation lap. So because they were so late getting the car ready, he had to be pushed. Like they had to put him on a trolley and push him round to the grid in the car. Okay. They forgot to give him a few things. See if you can notice what they forgot to give him.
Steering wheel, claps and steering wheel here. Give me steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel, somebody tell him to give it to me. Come on, move.
Yeah, they forgot his gloves and his steering wheel.
What could you possibly want that for? I don't know.
He's literally sat in the car. There is no steering. It's just like a pole coming out towards his face. And he's just there like shouting at this guy next to him.
And the race is like about to start.
But the guy's got the steering wheel and his gloves in his hand. And he's just walking next to the car. And he's like a minute before the race starts or something. Kimi's just like going nuts.
That was very funny.
Yeah. So that's Kimi Räikkönen. We will look into Kimi Räikkönen a little bit more.
Okay.
There's a lot of funny things that he's said and done.
Yeah, cool.
Including, in fact, one of them, I've just got to tell you now because it's piss. His McLaren, I think, set on fire or something. He retired from the Monaco Grand Prix, and he had a boat at the harbour. And so what he did was he jumped out the car, walked around to his boat, took his overalls off, and sat with a beer and had a few beers with his friends. Yep.
Holy heck.
He is a legend. He's known for just like going and partying the night before a race.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's a bit cooked.
Wow, what a bloke.
What a bloke. Right, I'm going to move us on to meme of the week. We get plenty of memes throughout all of the F1 season. This week we had quite a lot of memes come out of the race, mainly around Lance Stroll, I'm going to be honest, because, he crashed into the wall and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, this meme doesn't actually come from anyone in particular. Like no creator has made it, no group has made it. This comes from his race engineer. They literally have made a meme themselves.
Right.
Lance crashes into the wall on lap 7 at turn 22.
Yep.
He's hit it on the front left inside, broken his suspension on that one. I think his steering arm or something like that had broken, which then just led him to go into the barrier on the far right-hand side, front wings across the track. He's buried in this wall. Like front nose is buried. He can't get out. Both of his wheels are fogged.
Yep.
His race engineer comes over the radio and says, "Okay, can you bring it back, Lance?" Lance replies, "No, I'm in the fucking wall." They've literally just made a meme on themselves. But also, we're watching it live and we're like, oh, yeah, he can't bring that back. He's in the wall.
That's good.
That's
what about, did you see Oscar's tweet as well?
Oh,
that was very good.
I can't remember what it was. I saw it literally this morning, like 5 a.m.
Yeah. Like, I'm now an expert on the Mercedes rear wing or something, but at least I got a few points.
Yeah. I tell you what.
That's good gear.
Skin doesn't know about Oscar's tweet in like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You need to catch up with Drive to Survive because Oscar's got one of the best Twitters. You need to follow him. He's guru.
Okay.
Well, that's a wrap on another lap of the Formula Fools podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the ride as much as we did. Now it's your turn to get involved with the Formula Fools family by connecting with us on social media. All of our socials are at Formula_Fools. I've still not made the Facebook. We're 4 episodes in.
Nice.
Go Disco.
Well done. But yeah, we should be across all the other platforms. So check us out there. And you can also leave us a rating and a review on the whatever podcast player you're listening to us on, Apple, Spotify, those sort of things. A review would help a great deal. Yeah.
We're doing pretty well on Spotify. I think we've got like 9 5-star reviews or something. I know we are flying up the charts. We got the chocolates. Watch out. Thank you for joining us at Formula Fools, where every turn is a chance for a good laugh. We'll see you next time.